Cool. Get everything going here while I finish setting everything up. Hopefully it's a good day for everyone. And a pretty good day for me so far, at least. So I can't really complain about that. Let's see. Still got a few things to set up, but I figured I've thought about it to myself before. I'm like, why don't I do all of my like setup stuff while we're just sitting here doing the like wait for people to trickle in portion of stuff. Makes no sense for me to like double up on the amount of time before I really get started writing things. So I don't know. Let's see here. Alright, let's see here. Okay. That's loaded up. Probably won't need that. Loaded and ready to go. Get our maps loaded up and ready to go here. Ah, man. So many things to load up and have just up and ready to go just in case. Just in case. So much of it is just in case type of stuff. No, just in case we decide to work on that. Never really know exactly where everything is going to go during a stream, since it's kind of a free form. Since it's sort of a free form version of streaming here. Tends to be more productive and quicker and easier to just have everything there rather than having to stop all of the momentum when we're working on something for me to load up whatever it is that I need to load up. If I've got it already preloaded up, that's usually just the quicker, faster approach here. Get everything going here. It's a nice sunny day around here. I had to fuss with the blinds a little bit to make sure I wasn't too washed out on the camera there. It's bright and shiny, and I was just glowing when I first loaded up the camera capture. So that took some doing, but I'm not gonna sit here and complain about a sunny day. We don't get a whole lot of those this time of year, so kinda nice getting something like that going. Alrighty, give it, what are we at? How many minutes? It's been like 3 minutes. We'll give it like a couple more minutes, just in case anyone else wants to trickle in from the Discord or anything like that. Try to be polite and courteous towards all the people who have been flatteringly loyal to my streams. I'm surprised anyone bothers because I'm such an amateurish goofball here, but we all start somewhere, right? We all start somewhere, and we all look pretty amateurish compared to where we are, or where we will be 5, 10 years from now. I assume I'll still be writing and doing stuff in 5, 10 years. It's not like I'm sitting here doing this only because I get an income for it. In fact, it's the exact opposite. I get nothing for this. This is fun, free time for me, so I don't see any reason why I'd stop. But at any rate, that's neither here nor there. Alright, yeah, it's only been 4 minutes, but I'm itching to get going, so I'm just gonna have us go. So yeah, I guess I've been really bad about like doing an actual intro for the sake of like VODs and stuff, but yeah, so I guess I'm Enviroboy, this is my channel, and we're gonna do some more writing. We have been working on, here, let me swap us over to, there we go. Alright, so we've been working on same dungeon for a little while, but we're making some good progress on it. Been working on, so just the quickest of quick recaps. The part of the dungeon we're writing is players are approaching what they believe to be an abandoned dwarven city called Cogdoral. They are approaching that city trying to find one of the keys that they're looking for the overall campaign. This overall campaign is basically designed to be essentially a treasure hunt. There's a story behind it, but functionally speaking, they're basically just doing a treasure hunt type of mission. Um, and so we are kind of throwing that together for our players, and the next step is for them to get to this dwarven city, which is where sort of clues are leading them to next. They don't know for sure that the key is there, but they know that that was sort of the last known placement of that key. So they're on their way there. They think it's an abandoned city, you know, a real Moria type of situation is what they're. Well, I guess it's not really that, because they weren't expecting Moria to be all as jacked up as it was. But you understand what I'm saying? Like that's what they're expecting to find. What the Lord of the Rings crew did find in Moria, right? They're expecting to find this sort of abandoned underground city. Is essentially what they're going to be expecting. And that's not what they're going to find. Instead, they're going to find that the city has been reclaimed. Well, not reclaimed, just claimed by a colony of Durgar. And so right now we are working on sort of the lead up to the city, where the players have traveled, gotten to the mountains, traveled a little bit underground, and are now on sort of the last. They're going through the last sort of defenses before reaching the city. And what that is it's this series of underground tunnels that the dwarves originally built as a sort of labyrinth that was meant to be a confusing death trap, essentially, to anyone who didn't have explicit instructions or guidance to get through. And it was sort of designed as a way to ensure that no invaders could easily make it into the city. And so players will need to navigate that, and now as they do not have any sort of guidance or anything like that, they have to make it through this slog of a dungeon on their own. And this dungeon is kind of going against what I usually try to do. I usually do my best to make sure my dungeons aren't very, like, bland dungeony per se. Like, I don't try to make sure that my dungeons that my players can play through aren't just collections of underground rooms with, just a collection of square underground rooms that they have to go through all of them, kill all the monsters, and then they can get all the rewards. I try to avoid doing that as much as possible. But that's not the case in this dungeon. That is exactly what I'm doing. Exactly because this dungeon is meant to be, or at least have been, a labyrinth that any visitor to the city would have to go through. It was, like I say, it was designed as a way to confuse, separate, confuse enemy invaders or whatever, and break them into smaller, more manageable groups should a counterattack be necessary. So this dungeon is very monotonous. It's very grueling. It's a slog, and it's meant to be. So that's what we're working on right now. And we've kind of got this rough plan here. I can actually pull up the map here. So here's our map that we are working on. And so it's broken up into, if you can imagine, there are sort of 4 segments to it, where it's the players will enter. If we were just imagining the screen cut into 4 squares, right? We've got in the bottom left-hand corner, it's the first set of rooms. Bottom right-hand corner, second set of rooms. Upper left-hand corner would be the third set, and upper right-hand would be the fourth set, right? So we've got these 4 sets of rooms. This is just one of the sets. This is that second set, right? And we've got all these different layers. That's our first set, second, third, and fourth. Those are all the different rooms, and we got to fill them out. And you can see that it's very samey, very, very monotonous, very grueling, and that's on purpose this time around. I want the players to feel bored and tired as they're going through this. I like to do everything that I can to try and get my players to reflect what their characters are going to be feeling. It makes the experience a lot more immersive, and it actually kind of plays into it. Something I didn't really mention it in response to it, but we were talking a lot yesterday on stream about metagaming and how you can sort of manage the tendency of players to metagame. I mean, there's a certain amount of metagaming you just can't avoid, right? You can't avoid it, because the fact is players are more all-knowing about the situation than the characters are, simply because the players are aware that it's a game, right? They're aware that it's a game, and they're aware that there's going to be challenges, right? They're more omnipotent than their characters. So there's a certain amount of metagaming that you just can't avoid. You just can't avoid it. But because of that, if you sort of make sure that players and what they're feeling reflects what the characters are supposed to be feeling, it can kind of help make sure that that metagaming isn't too disruptive, right? It makes sure that their role play is pretty reflective. So I want to make sure that the players are feeling that sort of slog, that drain that's going to come with trying to get through this dungeon. No different. Oh, excuse me. Oh, I need more coffee here. But yeah, so if we can get the players to sort of feel that slog, it'll be a more immersive, more I guess immersive really is just the best word for it, experience for them. So that's what we're working on here. We have finished our first set of rooms, got it all sort of described out, and so now we got to get going on our second set of rooms here, or rather continue. We already have a few of them written up. The one sort of defining feature that each of these rooms has that sort of separates them, makes them all distinct from one another, is there's a statue in each room, and each statue is a little different. And the idea is that the dwarves would have been able to provide, like, welcome guests, perhaps with guidance on, look for this statue, look for that statue, and you'll know you're going in the right direction. To get through this network of rooms and challenges and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the only defining feature in any of these rooms, are these statues there. And like I say, it makes for kind of a monotonous build and a monotonous dungeon to get through, but that's exactly what we're going through, because we have a lot of... I work very hard to make sure there's a lot of diversity in what happens in any of my dungeons. I try to make them all unique from one another. I try to make sure that no dungeon feels the same. And within the dungeons, I try to make sure that each like set of rooms or whatever I'm going for has sort of, there are distinct features at different parts in the dungeons. This dungeon is different. I want this one to feel like it's, I just want it to feel like it's breaking the players down, because that's what it's meant to do. That's what it's meant to do. You know, it's an immersive experience. And the thing is not every group is going to appreciate that. And that's totally fine. And so if you're a DM looking into this and you're like, I don't know if my players would go for it, then by all means, don't do it. Don't do it. But my players like the sort of immersive nature of my games. So I stick with it. And that's what we're working on here because of it. So anyway, enough babbling about it. Maybe I should actually like write something here today. Alright, so this next room here, we've already sort of established what is going to be in each room, right? You can see we've kind of already pre-mapped out what thing is going to be found anywhere in these rooms. Man, oh man, I cannot stop yawning. I need more caffeine in my body here. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, it does not bode well for coaching tonight. I gotta wake up. I might need to take a little power nap at some point in time today if I'm gonna be doing that. Good lord. My goodness. Okay, so a medium battle here. We've already predetermined how much challenge is going to be here, and with each set of rooms that our players will experience, right? Because I talked about how there's 4 sets of rooms. Each set, as they progress, it's not exactly a linear pathway. Oh, excuse me, but they will, by trying to find the proper keys to unlock different doors and whatnot through the dungeons, there's a progression that they'll go through different sets of rooms, and so since there is sort of that progression that they'll go through, I'm trying to make sure that there are easier monsters in the earlier sets and then harder monsters the deeper they go, so that way the challenge of the dungeon just increases as they go until it'll, you know, reach a climax of having to fight the boss of this dungeon, and then they can move on and all that kind of stuff. So because of that, we've already kind of predetermined exactly what type of challenge is going to be presented to them within this set of rooms. So we're talking about a medium difficulty combat. Means there's going to be about 600 experience points worth of challenge here. And now if we're working with our predetermined monsters here. Where do we have that written down? I know I got that written somewhere. Here we go. So we need to come up with 600 experience points worth of stuff here. The Slithering Tracker, that's the boss for this floor, so we're going to avoid using that one yet. So we can probably go with something like 3 of the Boneless, which are just piles of skin, which are so creepy. So creepy and messed up. They're so good. I suppose that's one thing to mention, too, about this dungeon. The thematic approach to this dungeon is very just like underground horror is what we're going for. Excuse me. A lot of oozes. There's shadows and ghosts and spirits and specters, and then there's like the Boneless, which are just like they're just like piles of skin is what they look like in there. They're so creepy and so messed up, and that's kind of what I'm going for. I'm going for these monsters that can like potentially hide in plain sight, right? A shadow can just sort of hide against the wall, and unless they're really observant, they won't notice that there's an extra shadow there. For the oozes, right? They can just be clinging to the ceiling as though there's some sort of like weird, nasty moisture that's sinking through the ceiling from above, stuff like that, and they can fall on players and all that kind of stuff. So, kind of going with that atmosphere, and with that in mind, I like the idea of doing. I think. Let's see here. I think because we don't have it set up right, we have these as our battles so far. I like to not repeat a battle within a set, so that way even if there's the same monsters, there's different compositions in terms of how many of any given monster there is. Oh man, I apologize so much for the yawning. Who would have thought? I find myself so boring that I can't even stay awake. Oh boy. Alright. So yeah, I'm gonna do, or not the shadows. I want to do the Boneless. Yeah, we'll do the Boneless here. 3 of these guys. That makes 600, and then we can do 6 shadows or something like that for another one. Which is a lot of shadows. That'd be a lot for them to deal with. That's really getting up there in terms of that action economy, but we don't need to worry about that at this exact moment. So now we just got to describe the room a little bit. So if there's 3 Boneless, yeah, we already talked about how there would be a bunch of Boneless. How did I describe it before? Go softly off the walls. Cold stone door stand to the east, southwest. Corner there is something piled up that looks like a pile of abandoned leather garments. Right, so that's how I described it before, and that's kind of what the things are doing here. So let's see here. I do want to just put a DM note in here early. And say, players, let's see here, we'll say, check passive perceptions higher than DC. We'll make this one a 12. That's a kind of a medium difficulty for this set of rooms here. We'll say higher than a DC 12, and they notice the Boneless piled up, but can't tell what they are from a distance. If players, let's say where is it? There's players want to try and learn more before getting too close. Investigation DC 14, and I'm putting investigation because it's the most obvious one, but honestly I think there's a lot of different approaches that players could take to trying to identify that. Like they could do some sort of arcana to see if there's magic abilities about it. They can do some sort of like animal handling is a bit of a stretch. I don't know if I'd count a Boneless as an animal per se, but like, you know, the point is there's a few different there's a few different possible approaches. The important part is that save DC, that DC check right there. DC check is that dice check. I don't know. I say DC so much I don't even explicitly remember what it represents. Well, I know what it represents. I don't know what it literally translates to all the time. I tend to forget that one. But at any rate, we've set that up there to give them a potential thing there. We've got it as a DM note first thing before we even read the description, so that way it's like, okay, front and center, plastered on our eyes once they enter this room. It's like, okay, I got to make sure and manage these types of things. It's a really important part about putting DM notes in your worlds as you're building them. So let's see here. If you want to try and learn more. Alright, so push open the cold stone door and find yourself facing another monotonous room of stone walls and doors. This is room 4, so that's this one right here. So we'll just go ahead and say, whoops, no, that's not what we need. We need this one right here. Doors exit the room to the south and the west. In the center of the room is a statue with what appears to be some sort of leather garment. Just say it like that, and let's see, some sort of leather garment, perhaps gifts to whoever is represented by this statue. Boom. And so then, you know, if they get closer without having successfully identified, then they enter combat. If they successfully identify, they have the opportunity to prepare. And a lot of times what I'll do is if my players take the time to prepare a plan, I'll honor that plan if it includes like a surprise attack or something like that. Even if it doesn't necessarily include stealth. So like a situation like this, if they identify, like especially if they've already fought some of the boneless, because this isn't the only room that's going to have them in there, right? So if they've already fought some and they're just looking at that, and even if they don't do like an investigation or something like that to figure it out, if they wanted to just attack it from a distance, I would honor that as a sneak attack, just because in my mind, even though they're not invisible while doing so, if they get the drop on their enemy, then by all means they get a nice little bit of combat advantage, right? It's like if you're walking down the street and you hear someone following you, right? Even if you don't know for sure that they're following you, if it turns out they are, and you quickly pivot around and deck them when they think they've got the drop on you, that's you getting the drop on them, and you get that punch for free. So kind of that same spirit that I do it. Also in the spirit of the fact that I want to see my players succeed, and it would be, it's rad when they learn from past rooms and use that to start planning ahead. I like to really reward that, and that's a kind of a key part, especially in a dungeon like this where it is a slog. It's a long trudge through just this repetitive challenge of just surviving room after room after room, right? When if there's any way that they can learn, even if it's kind of meta knowledge, that they just sort of understand what it is. It's like, you know, if their characters have encountered this monster before, then it's totally on brand for the characters to think like, wait, we've seen this before, let's maybe shoot an arrow at this pile of garments before we assume it's a free leather vest or something. So I like to reward that kind of stuff. And it's not like in a dungeon that has 40 rooms, you know, being able to do that in a couple of them is going to be what turns the dungeon into a too easy broken experience for the players, right? Like that's a lot of dungeon to have to make it through. So no matter their approach, they're going to earn that. You know they're going to earn that. So at any rate, the reward here is an item of some sort. Been thinking more and more about the items. I don't know that I actually like giving my players even just mundane items. Honestly, would prefer to just give them materials if they're searching for it, because we use a lot of crafting and enchanting in my games with my group. You know, that's just how we do it. I prefer to have my players craft and modify their own clothing, their own armor and weapons for the most part. So that way they can slowly build up their own legendary items rather than just like hoping they find one. Um, and so because of that, like having them find items, it just doesn't have a place in our game very much. Most of the items that players find, aren't things they really want to use. So I'm tempted to swap that up and just change that into being another somehow clue that there's Durgar. Although there's no reason that it can't be both, right? It can be some sort of Durgar item. Maybe I'll do that. Because I'm trying to sprinkle clues in here, so that players can maybe even be encouraged to do some metagaming and figure out that there are Durgar in here, and that's what they're heading into, as opposed to emptiness, or like dwarves are even more likely emptiness. So yeah, I kind of wanna do that. Almost want to do some sort of. Oh, it'd be good if there was like a small, like a tourist translation dictionary, right? Like one of the small things that goes between common and undercommon, since the Durgar are all speaking common. That'd actually be really funny. Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. We can say something. I wonder if we can just approach it by saying something along the lines of like, in the in the ruins of one of the, like in the ruins of one of the boneless, right? Like it were like in the ruins of the skin, because I'm imagining all of the boneless, all of those skins are gonna be those of the Durgar, right? Durgar that have died, or dwarves, either way. Let's see here. Lying on the ground where the heap of boneless were when you entered is a small book. As you look at it, you can see that it appears to be a traveler's dictionary, translating between common and undercommon. And we'll just do that, and like just that, and then when we add another clue, that other clue can be sort of a note or something that suggests that there's Durgar present, and so the players can use that dictionary to translate the note and stuff like that. I love giving little tools like that to my players, little tools that give them, more ability to understand more about the world they're in, because the world I've created is one that is largely filled with abandoned places. And sort of the always ever-present underlying, sea story of it all is what happened to this planet, like this land. Why is there nothing, why is there nothing left? And like it's known why there's nothing left, but like, just that mystery of like how were things before it all fell apart? What was going on in this world? What was this place like? What was that place like? What's going on here? What was happening here? Right? I love providing that sort of exploration, and so if you kind of find ways to sprinkle that in among everything they're doing, it can really help with the immersion. I take a lot of inspiration from the way lore is told in the Dark Souls game series, right, where there's very little lore explicitly explained to everyone, but as you wander through these just shattered and torn asunder lands, right, as you're traveling through all that, you pick up items that have little bits of story with them that kind of tell you a bit more about the world and what's happened and what is happening and all that kind of stuff. And I like to kind of take that approach. I find that very inspiring and very intriguing when it's like, because it makes it feel like it's a living world that doesn't actually care if you're present or not. It's a world that just goes on with its day, right? And if you're there, then you can participate. But if you're not there, the world doesn't care, right? There will still be this ancient history, and there will still be all these ruins. And if you're there, you can experience those ruins. But if you're not there, the world goes on. And I like my players to feel that way, to kind of have that feeling of, oh, this isn't a world that revolves around me. I'm an actor in this world. And again, it helps with that immersion, I find. So with that in mind, I like the idea of giving them a dictionary that can help them translate, because there is going to be a lot of like foreign language stuff that's all written under common as they're going through here, because they're finding little clues that have been left behind by the Durgar. So let's see here. That gives me an idea. I already have an idea for 5 here. I'm gonna write this down. I'm gonna jump the gun a little bit here. See, I don't know why I put a space there. So let's see here. Yeah, reward. I'm just gonna say it as reward here. You find what appears to have been the journal of an ancient dwarven man. As you leaf through the various entries, you can see that this dwarf was a miner who worked as part of, I don't know, we'll say city zoning, right? Because they're underground, so I feel like a miner would be like a construction crew or city zoning. Part of the city zoning commission, whatever. The last few entries, however, diverge from the usual recountances. Is that a word? Is I don't think that's a word. Like recountants. Recountants, is that it? Because you recount something from the usual. I'm trying to figure out if I'm piecing together a real word, or if I'm pulling a Shakespeare and making up a word. All right. Well, we'll just change it to recollection. Recollections. There's the usual recollections of daily minutia to something much more dramatic. You realize that this journal is describing the days of the unhinging, and that was the cataclysmic event that caused this world to become this broken, abandoned, forgotten world, largely, right? This unhinging that just ripped apart the entire world and all of the different planes of existence, even beyond the mortal plane. And only a handful of well-fortified cities really survived. And so that's what the unhinging is. And so we're going to say this journal is describing the days of the unhinging as they unfolded under the mountain. Horrible beasts started flowing from out of the deep and abandoned tunnels, while many dwarven individuals began to go insane from the chaos. This individual tried to escape, but found himself trapped in this room, afraid to go on. In his words, we'll say, let's see here. We'll make it even more personal. A dwarf that he once knew to be a baker not far from his homestead had lost his mind and was desperately trying to kill him. I don't know, that's a little too blatant, and I don't like the way that's phrased. In his words, I have a better idea. In his words, this will make it even more personal. We'll add a quote. We'll put a direct quote from this journal. We'll name him Grogan. It doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of coming up with something. There's Grogan, the baker from down the street, was attempting to flee with me, but something has happened, and his mind is no longer clear. He began shouting at me to leave him alone, and that he would kill me if I tried to touch him or something. I don't know, whatever. I ran into this room for my own safety, but now I can hear Grogan beating at the door. He was carrying a mace with him. If he makes it through, I am finished. My only hope is that one of the horrible beasts that have claimed the tunnels takes him out and leaves, so that I may escape. And then we'll just say the journal ends there. The journal ends there. It is impossible to know if this dwarf escaped or if his fate was to become one of the animated skins that you just dealt with. Oops, D-A-L-T with. Boom, there we go. Now if that doesn't screw with my players' minds a little bit, I don't know what will. I mean, I know for me, like especially if I'm like in character and thinking about reading that and finding that, you know, again, like it's a very Moria type of trope, right? Where it's like, can hear them at the door, they're coming, right? That kind of thing, and then just sort of like it just ominously ends there. That type of stuff, like if for me personally, if I encounter that in real life, there wouldn't be much of me left emotionally for a little while after that. That would mess with me a lot. And like I say, I want this dungeon to feel like a horrible, just terrible slog to get through, and that includes sort of mentally and emotionally. I don't want this to be a journal that they can just sort of like, you know, DiCaprio skip their way through and feel all happy-go-lucky about. Like, this is a dark place, and I'm priming them for when they eventually reach the city, which is now a Duragar city. I want them to feel beaten down when they get to that, because once they encounter those Duragar, they're going to be faced with a decision. Do they try and fight their way out, or do they try and negotiate their way out? And I want them to sort of be at the state where they feel kind of desperate and feel like, oh my gosh, there's no good decision here. Like, I kind of want that for them. Because up until this point, it's been kind of high adventure, you know, going to the mountaintops and finding a key up there and all that kind of stuff, which is still tough, but they haven't been faced with something quite this, just like, ugh. Like, you know, I haven't presented them with anything that I would think would make them say, is this even worth it? And I kind of this dungeon happens sometime around like the beginning of the second third of this campaign, right? So it's right around that midpoint, and so I kind of want them to reach this point where their characters are kind of at a decision point of like, do we continue on? Is this quest that we're on worth it? Do we need the rewards from this quest this badly, or have we reached our limit? I want them to feel that. Because I think it's those types of situations that will give them the opportunity to present their characters with a bit of growth. So, anyway, to stop babbling about it, let's go back with room 4 here. We do need to decorate room 4 here, and I find it easiest to just do it one room at a time. I had that idea for the journal, and I wanted to get that written down. I really wanted to get that one written down, because it was a good one, and I didn't want it to sneak out of my brain here. All right, so first thing we do have to do is we need to do our torches. Why is it being weird? There we go. We want this to not be snapped to the grid here, so we can be a bit more free with our torch placements here. Go there. Oh, I don't like that placement. It's sticking out a little too much. Yeah, I like that better. There, and then just one on each wall otherwise. So funny, these rooms don't look very big when we're looking at them just from this like top-down perspective, but when you actually do the math on this, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. That's 35 feet across. 35 feet by 30 feet, because it's 6 down. 30 by 35. That's like that's almost this one place here is almost the size of my apartment. This one room. This is actually a very big cavernous room here. It's so funny to me how like it's so easy to not really recognize the scale of what we're working with when you're making these dungeons and stuff. I gotta see what statues I've already used. I'm trying to not repeat any statues because I really want. Did we use that one already? Yep, we did use that one. Did we use that one there? I don't think we've used that one. Oh yeah, we have. There it is. All right. Oh, that was the last one we used. That means we should be able to use Cowboy here. Free of concern. Yes, we have not used Cowboy here. Let's go ahead and use our Cowboy. I've been having them all face south, and there's no particular reason for that. But at this point in time, I've done it so much that I really want to keep with the theme, and then just like maybe in the last set of rooms, have one of them facing east, just to mess with my players, just to see if they notice, right? Like, it seems kind of cruel how much I mess with my players, but this is how as a DM we make our own fun. Because we get to have fun with this too, and one of the most fun things to do is to embrace with the inherent conspiracy theorist crazy suspicion that players always end up developing towards their DM. Right? It's only a matter of how many traps do they have to put up with before they eventually become just the most suspicious and grumpy and upset people you can imagine. So, you always just add those little subtle things and see if they notice. Just for a little bit of a giggle. Alright, so that's room 4. That's really all we need to do for these rooms. The decoration part is simple. Decoration part is really simple for all these rooms. So now on to room number 5, which is, again, pretty much like the rest of them. I mean, honestly, with these rooms, we could just go through and decorate all of them. I don't usually do that, because if there's anything specific that comes up, I like to just put it right there while I'm fresh and having just written it. And also that way, when I'm going through things, I'm less likely to forget about it, because I'm not breaking the workflow to do everything, or alternatively, I'm not continuing on past that and then forgetting which rooms have unique things that I need to do, right? So it just saves time, saves effort that way. All right, so room number 5 here. This one's gonna have an easy battle, and so that's gonna be worth 300 experience. Is our goal here. We did one easy battle already, didn't we? Yeah, we have one easy battle. We did 3 shadows. So I think I'm going to do 6 of these oozes here. So copy that little bit there. 300 XP. And then just so we don't forget it, that'll be 6 of the reduced threat gray oozes, each with 50 experience points a pop. I always put here, just a note I was thinking about, I don't know if I've really explained why I do it. I always put the total amount of experience points that the room is worth, and then what each individual creature is worth. So that way, when my players are going through, because I run experience-based campaigns, and that's like this dungeon this is a level 4 dungeon, so this dungeon has in it enough monsters to carry. If players go through and kill everything, there's enough in there to carry them from the very beginning of level 4 all the way to the very beginning of level 5, right? There's enough experience points for a group of 5, I should say, a group of 5 level 4 players to all reach level 5 by the end of it if they kill everything. Understanding that they may skip killing some stuff, but before the campaign is over, we will include a lot of potential side missions that will have additional things for them to kill. There's travel that will potentially have things for them to kill. There's long rests that will potentially have wandering monsters. So there's a lot of potential extra experience points in those routes, as well as the fact that I will oftentimes, when they do something very narratively significant, I will also give them a nice hearty chunk of experience points. Like, for example, if they finish their primary goal within this dungeon, right, once they get to the end of it, for the sake of having gotten to the end of it, I will oftentimes award maybe like a 10th of whatever the experience points needed to get to the next level. I'll like award that or something like that. So it kind of scales, and so there's plenty of opportunities for them to get all the experience they need. But that's kind of where that's how I like to run my games. It just makes it feel less arbitrary to me. Right, and it incentivizes players being thorough and thoughtful as they go through things, because they're not just thinking about like, oh, let's just sprint to the next thing so that way we can get, our next level, and instead they're more focused on like, hey, we should explore and do a good job of completing this job. Good job of completing this job? A good job of completing this mission. It's grammatically correct, but it sounded weird. Anyway, they'll do a good job of completing the mission so that way they can get ample rewards and everything like that. And I do that not necessarily because I think it's wrong for players to rush through, but really what it comes down to is I don't find that to be very fun, right? If I'm a DM and I'm taking this much time to write up these dungeons, I mean, this is just one dungeon. You can see how much thought I'm putting into it. This campaign is going to have at least 10 dungeons in it, at least. That's like the main story dungeons, and then there will be plenty of side missions and stuff like that inserted in here for them to experience. And so if I'm going to put all of that effort in, I would prefer them to at least take their time and enjoy what I've made, rather than just trying to speed run everything. So I don't know, that's my personal philosophy. There are a million other philosophies, so if you don't share that with me, I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you that you're wrong and I'm right or anything like that. It's all about your groups and you as a DM and what game you want to provide and what game your players want to play and all that kind of stuff. So, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I guess I'm just offering up my philosophy and then offering up the grain of salt you should take it with. Because I think I've played in games with many DMs who take very different approaches, and each game is just as fun as the next as long as you got a good group who's all kind of at least getting some of what their ideal game is. And so for me as a DM, if I'm running as a DM, my ideal game is one in which players will really take their time and be thorough. And so, the compromise is I offer up lots of opportunities so they don't have to be 100% thorough, but they are rewarded for being thorough. So, anywho, this room has an easy battle. We're going to have it be a bunch of oozes. I think this is going to be... I'm going to make this room actually a little unique. Usually I have the oozes try and sneak up on the players, but I'm actually going to, because it's empty, there's no reward in here, I'm going to actually give them one last clue here. So, as you enter this room, you find yourself looking at what you at first thought was one massive gray ooze. But as the door scrapes open and you enter, the ooze seems to ripple and separate into a small herd of uh, we'll say more normal sized oozes. A few of them start slithering. I guess slithering is probably the best word for how a gray ooze moves. Like flowing, kind of. I always think about the oozes as moving. Like, is anyone? Okay, okay. Like I grew up as a '90s kid personally, um, and I remember there was this phase in kids entertainment. Sometime I feel like if I'm remembering properly, it was between the years of like 1996 to 2002, right? Is what my instinct tells me. There's no scientific basis for that. There's no research going behind choosing that date range. It's just emotionally that feels right to me. But at any rate, even if I got the years wrong, there was this period where everything designed towards kids was about ooze and slime and all that kind of stuff, right? There was like like Capri Sun commercials had kids turning into like the Quicksilver Mercury puddles that would skateboard or whatever, right? And like everything was like, you know, like people would get slimed in a game show and stuff, or thrown into a pit of ooze, right? And there was like this show that was like Ghost Rider or something like that, which like I was too young to really understand what the plot was with that one, but I just remember at one point in time there was this villain that was basically a big giant slime monster that would like show up out of nowhere. Like it would show up in like the pot of soup that mom was cooking for dinner or something. It was really bizarre, but it was like this ooze monster thing. I don't know. It just everything was like that. But the important part is that Capri Sun thing, because of like the way all of the creatures would move. There was like another show where it was like this girl that had the power to turn into a puddle of mercury that could flow. I forget what her name was. I forget what the name of the show was. But it's like, it's like that kind of stuff all over the place. And that's kind of how I imagine the oozes moving. So what is that? Like, how would you describe that? Is that like flowing? Or is it like, I'm going with slithering. Because the reason I'm doing that is because slithering has more of a sinister connotation, right? Because it makes us think of like snakes and nasty things that we don't like coming towards us. So like slithering is there, but it's almost more like flowing, right? But I don't want to describe them as flowing because that sounds like gentle, and that's not really the situation either. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just like saying random words at this point in time, but like I don't know. Like that's what I think about with them. And so whenever it's like, how do they move towards us? Like, do they slither? Do they flow? Like, is there a pseudopod underneath that's kind of like walking? I don't know. I'm overthinking it. I'm not even gonna say I'm probably overthinking it. I know I'm overthinking that. I know I'm thinking way more than it really needs to be thought about. So, anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. A few of them start slithering towards you, while a few stay where they are. Let's see here. With stay where they are, and we'll do that, and we'll just describe it as that, and then we'll say empty. So it's an empty room. The room is completely empty of everything except the customary torch and statue, as well as an apparently half-digested body that lies where the initial ooze pile sat. Oopsie, ooze pile sat. There we go. As you examine the body, you notice that most of the skin of the torso has oh wow, that is an embarrassing spelling of. The torso has apparently apparently been digested off of the bones. However, looking at the skeleton, you can see this humanoid was roughly the size of an adult dwarf. See, not roughly, roughly. Kind of sounds the same on mic, doesn't it? Rough and it's like the same. Is that a fun one? Is that good ASMR? Me just going right into the mic. I'll stop. All right, roughly size of an adult dwarf. And then here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to offer a DM note. If players want more investigation DC, we'll just give it a 12. They can look closely and figure it out for the most part, but it's like it's not so much in this situation, not so much them seeing it, it's more so them understanding the significance of it, right? So we'll do more investigation DC. Oops, no, we're not doing DM notes anymore. We can make our font color black again. Looking closely at the legs, you can see that the skin is a dark grayish color. And we'll just leave it like that. We'll just leave it like that. No other information, right? Just kind of feed that little bit to the players. Like, hey, looks like a dwarf, except for the skin, which looks like a Duragar. So, you know, and just kind of let them figure that out. And the fun thing about that one is, like I say, it kind of works to mitigate metagaming by putting the players and the characters in the same situation, right? So, like, both the character and the player understand, like, oh, there's something weird about this body, right? Especially if they rolled well on investigation and I told them. But it's an obvious enough thing that it's kind of more so just about, does the player / character know what a Duragar is? Would they have a context for why a dwarf would have ashen gray skin? And that's kind of the fun part, because it's kind of totally fair game in this situation for players to use their knowledge as much as character knowledge, right? It's kind of fair game for them to go ahead and be a little meta about it for the sake of just determining what they do and don't know about this dungeon. So let's go ahead and decorate this one. Okay, there is actually going to be one unique thing about this one. Let's see. We didn't have any of the horse ones, so we'll go ahead and do another cowboy right here. Right? It's like, why not? So we'll do that one right there. We need to get our torches going. So we can do like there, 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 and there. Put there and there. Put just one right there. And then go ka-ching and ka-ching. Just like that. And then let's get some lighting in here. Ka-ching, ka-ching. This is one of the most well-lit rooms in the dungeon. Just because we're doing our customary one torch on either side of the door, I mean, come on, that's just dungeon digging 101, right? If you're trying to light up your dungeon, you always put 2 torches on either side of the door, right? It's like the medieval version of an exit sign. Like, hey, door here, go through it. Alright, so we'll do that, but now there's one other thing that we can do to give this one just a little bit more pizzazz here. And what we can do is corpse here, and we could do like a corpse, or I'm thinking, let's see here, how do I want to do this? Let's kind of ashen gray. We could just like lessen the scale to make them look more dwarf-like. I wish I could. I wish there's a way for me to do just like in half, like intact bottom half. Oh, let's just try skeletons. Let's see what we can find with skeletons here. Yeah, see, we can at least like put this in there. Right, and I just want to make sure that it's like in a place that will be visible from any of the doors they walked in, so that it doesn't matter what door they walk in, the description still makes sense. We'll just use a skeleton. It's not exactly accurate, but I highly doubt that in the stock image collection of this resource, this tool that I use, I highly doubt that it's going to have a half-digested corpse option. It just doesn't seem likely. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. It seems a little out there for that to exist there. Alright, so there's room 5. Now let's do room 6. That's really all we needed for room 5. That's perfectly acceptable. So let's do room 6. Ooh, a trap. Oh boy, I gotta think about a trap in here. I have not thought at all about what kind of traps would be in this set of rooms. I know the last one, the trap I did was, oh, excuse me, what was it? That other set. Let's see. Okay, so on that one there was like a puzzle. Let's see here. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay. So that was for the trap we did. Oh yeah, this one it wasn't even necessarily a trap that they had to get out of. It was an opportunity for them to like basically. Oh, that's right. Yeah, they can pull the lever, and like if they do it to themselves, then they're like in trouble. It's like it's a trap that's preying on player curiosity. They pull the lever, and suddenly spikes start shooting up one by one through the tiles, and so they have to just basically deck save to get their way out of it. Which is kind of a dickish puzzle, honestly, but I'm not worried about it. This whole thing was meant to be this whole thing was designed with the intention of screwing with players. So let's see here. I know what I want to do. I want to DM note some stuff here. When players walk in, check passive perceptions. Oops. Go check passive perceptions. DC 12 to notice the holes drilled into the ceiling. DC 14. Just hold up 1 second. That's not important. Okay. DC 14 to notice that one tile directly in front of each door is slightly raised above the rest. Alright, so it's like if they notice that, then they'll realize that these tiles have pressure plates. And what I'm thinking is if they accidentally stand on one of them pressure plates, regardless of which one, it will trigger a flow of acid to start dripping through the holes in the ceiling, so that they would all have to make deck saves to try and find regions where the holes appear to be clogged or non-existent, so that they can try and avoid getting getting turned into Swiss cheese by drip drops of acid and everything. So let's see here. As you walk in, you are not surprised to see the familiar single statue and multiple doors to the north, south, and west. Oops, and west of this room. And then, so we'll just go ahead and say, since we've already determined that, if no one triggers it, then great, we don't need to worry about this part. But we'll say, as you step into the room, suddenly you feel the tile below your feet. Actually, we'll say below your foot depress slightly, and a soft clicking noise comes from above. Soon, we'll say an olive green substance starts dripping through the holes and sizzling with whatever they land on after falling from the holes. And so we'll say, what am I trying to find? I'm trying to find my damn note. Oops, wrong part, right here. Players must make DC 12 check to, and I'm not going to specify anything like acrobatics or athletics or anything like that. A lot of times in these situations, really I like players to be creative, and if they can give me like a good explanation about why this, that, or the other skill is relevant, I'll usually accept it as long as they can offer a good one. So I will oftentimes write just this way and say, must make a DC 12 check, or save. I guess in this situation it's kind of like it's more like a save than a check, but I guess it's kind of neither here nor there. To dodge the acid as it falls. So that's the trap there. That's the gist of it. Hey, El Blabo, welcome. Glad to see you here. Let's see here. And on after falling. Yeah. So it falls on fail. Take. Gosh, see, this is the hard part that I always have with traps, is trying to figure out what would be a good amount of damage. I mean, they're up to level 4 at this point in time. Like, I always find that a safe amount of damage is to do like a handful of D4 or D6, right? And like you can do, a lot of times you can just do the same number of rolls as the level that the players are expected to be around the time, right? So that this is a level 4 dungeon, we can do like 4d4, and that'll guarantee 4 damage up to 16 damage, and that's a pretty decent range for level 16, because I don't want this to be, this isn't the type of thing that would necessarily kill them. This is meant to like weaken them, because it is very old. It is a very old acid trap, so a lot of the acid may have already like burned off and not be. It may have volatilized. So let's see here. Let's see what are we working. Oh, we're working on. We're making a dungeon. We're designing a dungeon that's for players to try and slog through. This is an underground, abandoned dwarven city type of dungeon. This particular one that we're working on, filled with lots of traps and corpses because it's been abandoned. So that's what we're working on at the moment. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's fun. It's part of the long-running project we're working on, where I'm designing basically an entire campaign on stream. So this is just one of at least 10 dungeons that we're working on. So it's quite it's a quite lengthy project, but it's fun. So let's see. I'm gonna do 4d4 acid damage for it. I mean, honestly, the thing is that's a pretty easy thing to adjust on the fly if we need to. Play D&D 2 times and kind of hooked. That's how it gets you. That's how it gets you. You play it. I mean, honestly, most people, they play it once and, gosh, it's game over there. Everything else in life is just killing time until the next session. Let's see. Oh, we don't need this to be DM note. more. Boom, boom, boom. Gosh dang it. Underline. Okay, so the reward in this one is there will be a collection of cash. We'll go ahead and just say, we'll say hidden under a, let's see here. I'm gonna make the players look for this one a little bit. Let's do investigation DC 12. We'll say for finding this little bit of reward here. Let's see here. Or to find people to play with. Pretty busy. Was DM once. Yeah. Finding that's the perpetual challenge, especially you know when life is happening around you, is finding time and dedicated people that are willing to commit time to play. That is always the challenge for just about everyone. There's no doubt about that. No doubt about that. Let's see here. Let's see here. As you look around the room, you notice a small, hollowed out chunk of wall where the acid is unable to reach. Inside appears to be a pouch of some sort. And then inside we'll just go ahead and get ourselves a bit of a loot pile here. It's always an opportunity when you find a way to get there. Yes. Yep, definitely traveling can be a difficult component of it if you aren't free to move about the cabin, as they say. You know, if mobility, you know, being able to get to different locations is a challenge. If you can't just like drive there on a whim or whatever, that can be a challenge for sure. That can definitely be a challenge. Let's see here. Okay, so we need to come up with a loot horde. So we'll just go ahead and roll a quick horde here. This is just this loot gen table is one of the best tools I found, because it just takes the Dungeon Master Guide loot lists and rolls automatically for you, so you don't have to go through the tedium of rolling and reading up everything in all of the tables. So 163 gold. No, we don't need to go there. I don't know why I clicked on that tab. We need to come over here. That's what we need to do. 163 gold, and then was that a bunch of artwork, bunch of gemstones? Okay. I am going to copy this and then paste it into there, and then we're just gonna edit it down a little bit. We don't need quite this much stuff going on here. Yeah, like we don't need all these descriptions here, and then we'll unlink these because I don't need the links to take me to the loot gen table again, and it just looks weird to me when they're all hyperlinked like that. So link, remove link, remove link, remove link. It's a little tedious to do this, but a lot less tedious than if I had to retype everything. So there we go. Let's see. Things to do that day too. Yep. Challenge. It's scheduling. Scheduling is forever one of the hardest parts about getting a D&D group together. Being able to find consistent days that every member is consistently free. That can be a challenge for sure. But don't give up. Keep trying to find groups, and eventually you'll find one. Eventually you will. You just got to be determined enough to keep looking until you find that right situation where all the stars align and you are able to get yourself some gaming in. Okay, let's just, now we need to decorate this room. Let's go back to our statues here, like we were working on. We gotta add our customary statue. I think we've used this owl. I actually kind of like the idea of the owl, just kind of like this owl statue chilling out in the middle of the room there. We'll do that one there. Let's get ourselves, we need to get our torches. So we can have some light sources and everything. as always, two for every door. The dungeon, the classic dungeon design. Get some light emanating from these bad boys. There we go. And then this one, because we've described there being a pouch, we're gonna take our pouch here, and what we can do is, so it's like hollowed in a hollowed out chunk of wall, so we can just like put it right there, half hidden by the wall, and kind of peeking out there, and that'll be perfect. That'll be perfect. Put two parties together. This is a city where every Tuesday you can play. Nice. Yeah, using finding. I wish my city had like Adventure League stuff going on. And I've thought about working with some of the local game shops to maybe even try and get something like that going on if I can find the time to do it once all the COVID restrictions die back a little bit more. We're getting there, but we're not quite there. But I can definitely help getting a game going doing that. What's that in reference to? What I guess what's what? Just talking about the program in general, using Dungeon Draft to make maps here. It's a mapping program that I absolutely adore, because all of these these lighting effects that I'm putting in here, you can use them for an online. You can use them for online tabletops, like virtual tabletops, and like these lights and everything will actually impact the visibility within the dungeon and stuff like that, so it sort of automatically takes into account things like dark vision and stuff like that, and line of sight. So we have all these doors here, right? When we were putting on doors, right, you can put them there, and when you put them into the virtual tabletop, they can be opened and closed, and so it'll impact line of sight and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm using Dungeon Draft. There's a couple different ones that have similar functions, but Dungeon Draft is sort of my preferred one. But there are a lot of really good options, and I really enjoy this program, faux show. So alright, so there's that room. Then our next room should be down here in this corner, room number 7. We've already got this one kind of half written up because I had an idea for what I wanted the reward to be, and that's that journal entry for our dwarven buddy here. That's dead. He's a dead boy, but that's okay. Okay, so we're gonna have an easy battle in here. That's gonna be, those are worth 300 XP in this particular part of the dungeon. So before we describe it, let's see here. So we should already have 2 easies. We have 6 oozes for an easy battle, and then 3 shadows. And so looking at our things that we're gonna do, could do a boneless and a shadow. It'd be kind of fun. We could do 2 shadows and 2 oozes. I don't know. I actually like the idea of doing a boneless. Oh, we could do a boneless and we could do 2 oozes. That would actually be kind of fun. I have an idea for that. Okay, 1x boneless, and that's worth 200 XP. And then go down here and do 2 of the reduced. Where is it? Threat gray. Oops, gray ooh. Wow. There it is, gray ooze, and those are worth 50 XP a pop. Oops. There we go. So we'll have the makeup like that. Let's see here. Let's see here. If a player surprises you, say with anything that is not what you thought, do just think away, roll what to do. So you're just talking about, like, generally speaking, having to handle if players catch you off guard with stuff. Yeah, like definitely there's a lot of that sort of yes and improv approach to being a DM, where it's like if players come up with all kinds of stuff, you just kind of roll with it and be like, sure, right? And you just kind of come up with a roll, and that's where knowing what the different skills are that exist within, you know, a character sheet, the skills and abilities and all that kind of stuff, and just sort of being able to think about what they would appropriately roll. And that's why I have all of these DCs pre-written out. And the idea is to, you know, and that's why I have even up here just sort of my skill checks, the baseline ability checks. So if players come up with something that I haven't explicitly planned on, I at least know, okay, here's like, if this is going to be an easy thing for them to succeed at, then we put, they have to get an 11 or better. If it's going to be really hard, I need them to get a 14 or better, right? And I base that on what the expected levels are for this dungeon, like what level of character this dungeon is designed for. So I kind of have that stuff pre-planned out. So even if they come up with something to try that isn't really what I was expecting them to do, I can still be prepared for it. And so that's kind of my approach to being able to handle those types of situations. Where am I from? I'm from America, kind of in the upper northeast part of the country, a state called Michigan, is where I am myself. Nice and cold this time of year, and that's been a challenge for me because I have also spent a lot of time getting very in shape to do some kickboxing competitions next year. So I'm very lean, not much insulation on me, and I am cold all the time. I am cold all the time. Let's see here. Okay, so it's an easy battle with. Okay, so here's how I want to describe this. I'm gonna do the same thing as with the other one, where there's like actually see, there's not gonna be any surprises. So as you enter this room, you see two blobs of ooze that appear to be consuming some sort of leathery object. As you enter, the oozes start. Again, I'm going to use the word slithering, but that's not really a better word to describe them, but that's not really accurate either. Oozes start slithering towards you. However, what's more disturbing is that the skin-like pile that the oozes appeared to be eating begins moving towards you as well. Boom, there we go. Add a little bit of body horror into that. So there we go. Perfect. Alright, so then we can go ahead and go to our decoration thing here. Just bought some dice. Nice. Dice are my favorite thing to collect. A lot of people go for the minis, but I personally go for the dice. I have a nice sizable dice collection these days. It's my favorite part. Bit more affordable, so it's a lot easier for me to have a whole lot of them, and there's so many different designs. The hard part about collecting minis as a DM is that there will always be more minis that I need, and minis get very expensive. So I always stick with the dice. Flowing, yeah. So I was kind of discussing earlier on stream. The word flowing is probably a bit more accurate for how the oozes move. The problem I have with flowing is that it doesn't sound sinister enough, right? It sounds just like a babbling brook, and so it just didn't feel right to me to use the word flowing for them. It's a good option, but I don't know. I just wanted something a bit more creepy. So I'm going with slithering. Also because largely it doesn't matter and I'm just obsessive. So mini figures. So like the little figurines that you can use for your characters or for the monsters and stuff like that. Is what I mean when I say mini. Okay, let's see here. We need another statue. We need another statue. I don't think we've used this little pharaoh looking thing, have we? We have not. I want to change the color of it though. I really just want the color to be just like solid gray here, down here in this thing. They're all just stone statues. It doesn't thematically make a whole lot of sense for there to be an Egyptian type of figure here, but I don't care. I'm just trying to make it look a bit more unique from just trying to make sure it's a different statue in every one, and there's only so many statues available within the collection of images there. And so there's our lights. Bada bing, bada boom. What I mean by dice instead of mini, I mean I spend my money on dice instead of minis. So I have a collection of dice and not a collection of minifigures. is what I mean when I say that. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, okay, now on to room 8. We're making very good progress on this dungeon today. I'm very pleased with this. Oh, crap. Nah, it's going to slow down because I got to think about a puzzle. Some sort of challenging puzzle for them to figure out. Okay, so the reward for this is going to be a map. So we can kind of use that to help us come up with a good puzzle. I almost want to just, like, have the map be locked inside of something. And then if they can unlock it, then they get access to the map. Especially, it's especially not, like, it's especially okay to kind of do, let me think here. Yeah, because, like, they walk in here, and their final goal is back there, so that's kind of towards the end, so depending on the route they take, they might not even need the map a whole lot, so we can go ahead and hide that behind something a bit more challenging. I don't know. Trick with puzzles is to try and come up with something that isn't too challenging for the players to figure out, but will require successful rolls from the characters to do. Because I like the puzzle to still be something that the players themselves kind of have to figure out, but I don't like coming up with something that's so cryptic that that the players themselves can't figure out exactly what I'm trying to get them to do, right? Because the game is, like, if they can, I want them to still figure it out, right? Because that's part of the point of a puzzle. But then, you know, I don't like it to be, I guess the big thing is I don't want their progress through the game to be hindered by a single puzzle. Because it's easy enough for me to, when I'm thinking of the answer, think about what you're supposed to do with the puzzle. But if you don't have that privilege of knowing what the final answer is, if you just don't have that, if you don't already know what it is, then it can be a lot harder than you'd realize to come up with the solution to a puzzle, right? Like, the analogy I always use is, like, for me as a DM, it's real easy for me to write the answer on your forehead with Sharpie, but you can't see your own forehead, and if you look in the mirror, it's backwards, so it's still pretty hard for you to read it, even though it's written plain as day on your own forehead. So that's always the challenge with puzzles here. And if there's going to be a map, I almost want to do, let's see here, trying to think about the nature of how this has been. Okay, here we go. We can kind of come up with, like, a lever puzzle here, something like that. Okay, so let's start it off here, and we can try and figure something out. Let's see here. In this room is a typical statue, like every other room every other room in these tunnels. However, this statue appears to have 3 levers attached to it. Let me see here. So what we can do is we can, okay, hold on a second. I'm almost piecing together. Okay, I'm going to change this a little bit. Here's to have, I want 4 levers. 4 levers. Oopsie. 4 levers? No, just 4 levers. Okay. This room is a typical statue. Like, this statue have 4 levels. There's 4 levers attached to it. Hanging from the ceiling is a chain with a weathered. Oopsie. No, weathered. Roll of parchment attached to it. So we'll say it's currently out of reach. Okay, we'll say the scroll is currently out of reach. Okay, and so let's see here. Okay, pulling lever number 1. Let's see here. Out of reach by, we'll say by 10 feet. Pulling lever number 1 lowers the scroll by 2 feet. Pulling lever 2, let's say 2 here. Let's see here. Pulling lever number 1 lowers the scroll by 2 feet. Pulling lever 2 lowers the scroll by, we'll say, 4. Oh, wait, hold on. No, we need to. Okay, here we go. By 7 feet. Pulling the lever. Pulling lever 3 raises. Wait. Raises the scroll by 3 feet. And pulling lever 4 lowers the brings the scroll all the way back up. Solution is to pull the levers in wait, I need to add one more thing. Each lever can be pulled as many times as they like, but if they exceed the 10 feet to bring it within reach, the scroll is returned to the ceiling. Boom. Okay, so the solution is to pull the levers in any combination that brings the scroll. Oops, where is it? Is this? Wow. Scroll down 10 feet to within reach. And we'll just say, alternatively, they can get creative with other skills to try and reach it, but anything they try requires a DC 14 to succeed. Boom, there we go. Okay, there's their puzzle. We can do that. Do I watch anime from time to time? Depends on the show. Let's see. Okay, map. The scroll is a map of this section of the tunnels. Boom. And actually, what we'll say here is the any words written on the map are in Dwarven. Boom. Because this was an original Dwarven. This was not something put in place by the Duragar, who speak Undercommon. So we'll put it in Dwarven there, and that'll be fun, because that'll just confuse them even more. So, perfect. Okay, so we got that. Let's go ahead and decorate our room. Get our objects. Go to used. Just get our torch again. Boom, boom. Boom. Boom, boom. Boom. And then doom. There we go. There's that. We need a statue. Let's see. I want this one to be like a big statue that looks like it could potentially have a bunch of levers on it now. Oh, perfect. Here we go. Look at that. There's like four partitions of this one. That's a perfect one. Boom. There we go. Okay. So we got that. And let's go with the light here. And there we go. There we go. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Alright. I like it. And it looks good. Let's see here. I should do numbers above than just a different language or something. Insight or history or intelligence. If they're another language, D20. 11 they can do it. Yeah, I mean we could certainly skill check the language and stuff there. But I actually like the idea of them just sort of there's just like 4 unlabeled levers there, so they have to experiment and play around with the levers and try them to figure it out. I feel like them trying to reach the scroll, getting the levers, and then seeing the chain go down different lengths. And as long as I'm careful in describing, like, okay, it's about 10 feet up, and then they pull one of the levers, it's like, okay, now it's only 8 feet up, right? So it moves it down 2 feet, and then they pull another one, it's like, okay, now it's only 1 foot out of reach, right? So that way they can know, like, okay, 2, and then that one did 7, and then they pull down the other one, it brings it back up, right? And so they have to kind of experiment with it. Is sort of the goal that I have there. You could definitely, if you wanted it to be a bit easier, you could do that. But like I say, the thing is I like to try and balance my puzzles to make sure that there's a little something for them as players to figure out too. So it's like if they're getting stumped by it, then I'll have them do like an intelligence check or something like that as a way to give them stuff there. But I actually like to start off as a little bit more challenging, so that way my players can have a bit of game to play too, rather than just everything always being roll to get the answer, right? I like them to try and have to figure it out, at least to try to start to figure it out. So those aren't terrible ideas. Those are decent ideas to sort of add a little bit of clarity, a little bit of clarity there. But as it stands, I like the idea also of it being a particularly tough challenge, because like I say, with this dungeon, these tunnels were created by the Doors originally exactly as a way to, like, with the intention of getting intruders and invaders lost. It's the final lead up to their city, and so the idea is anyone who has been invited to the city and is welcome into the city will have the answers and know where to go and what to do to get through these tunnels quickly and safely. Everyone else, it's kind of meant to be all kinds of challenges meant to confuse and befuddle and distract and harm and make lost any sort of intruders there. So the idea is for it to be cryptic and challenging for them, kind of like if you've ever played the original Myst games. Myst, you're kind of plopped down. There's a bunch of puzzles and very little information on how to solve them. All you can do is just kind of go around and start experimenting, and that's kind of the atmosphere I'm trying to build with this dungeon. Sort of label, maybe riddle. Yeah, I mean, labels and riddles, they all kind of serve the same purpose. They serve as a way for you as the DM to provide clues for them. It just kind of depends on the flavor. But like I say, well, my intended approach with this one, and knowing what my players, because I'm part of a group, right? And so I think a lot about what my players are capable of. And from what I see with my players and their problem-solving abilities, I think that this wouldn't be a problem for them. I think they'd be able to figure it out. It would just take some discussing and stuff like that. And I think they could figure it out just fine. How do you do enemies in the app? So within this dungeon, within this map maker, I don't put enemies in there because what'll happen is this program is just a map making program. The program that I use to play when it's online is Foundry, which you can import this map into Foundry. And so I will do the enemies in Foundry, because if I were to put enemies on here, like in this map as it is right now, they would become permanent objects on the map that I could not interact with and move. So in Foundry, you can put little squares and enemies, same with your characters' tokens, right? You can put them on there and then move them around there. So there are just little tokens that you can put down, and it actually works with D&D Beyond to get like official pictures and stuff like that. And so it'll have like little squares where there's enemies that'll take up the space that they're in, and you can move them around and manipulate them in there. That's how we do it. Because when you use Roll20, yeah, Roll20 is very similar. It's not quite as powerful as Foundry. Foundry is it's got a lot more tools, and it's open source. So people have made a lot of really cool tools and widgets that you can add to the program to make it a bit more in depth and a bit more specified to exactly what you're looking for. But Roll20 is the same basic concept, and Roll20 it's the same thing. You make your map, and Roll20 doesn't have interactive maps, so like the light and the doors and stuff wouldn't work automatically like they do in Foundry. But it's the same idea where it's like you make the map and then you import the picture of the map into Roll20, and then you manipulate the tokens and stuff on top of that map. But it's the same basic principle. It's the same basic concept using all of those. All right, let's see here. I've got not a whole lot more time left on stream here, so I'm going to try and see if we can't finish this set of rooms. So I'm going to kind of zip through this if I can here. If I can. I'm not going to sacrifice quality per se. We need to come up with a medium battle. We already did... this should be 3 boneless. We already did 3 of the boneless for a medium battle, and a medium battle will have 600 experience points to work with. Let's see. We could do... like... Oh, that would be a really tough one, too, because the action economy would be really brutal on players. If we did 4 shadows and 4 of the oozes, that'd be great. So, yeah, let's do 600 XP. So, 4 shadow. Those are worth 100 XP a pop. And then for reduced threat gray ooze, those are worth 50 a pop. Boom, boom. There we go. There we go. Do XP or milestone? Mostly XP, but I will throw in milestone just to make sure players don't fall behind depending on how things go in any given dungeon. So each dungeon will have all the experience points necessary for them to get from one level to the next, right? So this is the level 4 dungeon for this campaign. So there's enough experience points as they're going through this dungeon and accomplishing everything there is to do in it for them to kill enough enemies and get themselves from the beginning of level 4 up to the beginning of level 5. But depending on how things go, like I'm not going to punish them for, finding more direct routes and being able to skip and avoid battles and stuff like that. So it starts off with the baselines of experience points based on these combats that are in there, but there's also wandering monsters that can give them a little extra XP. I will have, outside of these dungeons, little side missions that are opportunities for them to get a lot of extra XP. And then what I'll do is, rather than necessarily doing it by a milestone type of situation where it's just like, oh, you finish this dungeon, you're automatically level 5. Instead of doing it that way, a lot of times what I'll do is, like, if they are able to complete a significant task within a dungeon, I'll say, okay, yeah, you guys accomplished this, you get, 200 experience points a piece that way. So it's not exactly milestone, but I do award points based on, role play and skill check based achievements as well as combat achievements. But I like to stick with the XP, and a lot of that is because it makes it a lot easier to make sure the combats are properly balanced, because a lot of the challenge ratings and difficulties of combats are based on a lot of sort of math that has kind of been built into how the system is created and constructed. So that's my approach. I think there's a million different approaches that are all as good as the next, but that's how I like to design things myself. So okay, let's see here. So I'm going to, just to save a little bit of time here, I have given them battles with shadows here, so we're going to do this. So we'll do that here. Notice extra shadows. Check pass any higher than DC 14 will notice extra shadows and lots of slime on any given wall and the ceiling. And the shadows and oozes will get a surprise round. So yeah, there we go. So let's do that. And then ba-boom, ba-boom. There we go. Quick description of this one. You walk into the room, and and a sense of being watched immediately falls. Let's see. They falls over you. It's hard to understand why, given the room is apparently empty, but still something feels off. Maybe it's the statue. Let's do that. Just give them a little bit of whatever. Alright, so let's see here. So got that, and then the reward here is the compass, which is a loose term that I use in the way that Legend of Zelda dungeons always use compass, and that it's really just an object that will tell them what important things can be found in any given room. So what I'm going to do with this one is, lying in the corner is the desiccated, let's see here, desiccated body of what appears to have once been a dwarf. This is one of those subtle clues that it's actually Durgar that's here. Falls upon you. Yeah, you can say falls over you, falls upon you. I think either one works. I think either turn of phrase is accurate. Lying in the corner is the desiccated body of what appears to have once been a dwarf. In its hand is a crumpled piece of paper. Notes written in undercommon describe what can be found in any given room in this portion of the tunnels. It appears this poor soul was lost and trying to figure out how to escape when they perished. Oh wait, hold on, it's perished. There it is. Boom, there we go. It's the wrong parish. That was like a church parish that I was trying to spell. Alright, so let's see. So let's go ahead and quickly. I'm totally going to get this done without even having to go overtime here. Let's see here. So we do need our torches. Doom, doom, doom. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Let's do. That's good enough. I really like that placement, but it's fine. And then there and there. Let's get our light tool going. Let there be light. And then going back to our objects, we just gotta find another statue here. That's it. We haven't used this gargoyle, and that would be like a creepy. That's like kind of a good creepy one for if they wanted to, if they wanted to read into why it feels like they're being watched and they haven't noticed any of the evil creatures about to try and consume them. All right, and so now last room here. Totally gonna get this done. Totally gonna happen. All right. So we'll say this one's gonna have a mini boss in it. Boss battle. Oh wait, hold on. How many experience points was the boss battle gonna be worth? It's gonna be a hard one, so it's gonna be 900 experience points. Okay, simple enough. That won't be too much for him. Not at all at level 4. 100 experience points. Boom. Ups to there. Our enemy makeup here. So we've got. What do we have? We've got our slithering tracker. Oh yeah, I was gonna do that with a couple. You can do that with 4 oozes, and that'll be perfect. X slithering tracker. 700 XP, and then 4 of the reduced threat gray ooze. Those are worth 50 XP pop. There we go. Um, as you enter this room, you immediately see a fresh corpse lying on the ground. It appears to be a dwarf in stature, but the skin is ashen gray. What's most disturbing, however, is that the chest of this poor soul is moving and bubbling as you enter. As you walk into the room, some sort of ooze creature begins rising from the chest. The ooze forms a featureless face and appears to stare directly at you as four more oozes form from the walls surrounding you. Boom, boss battle. There we go. Join the Discord. Thank you. I appreciate you joining in. Glad you're interested. I will at some point in time, hopefully today, get on there and get you verified so you can join in any conversations. It's kind of a smaller, quiet Discord, but people like to share a lot of homebrew stuff that they're working on there, so you can kind of see some interesting projects that people are working on for D&D. It's kind of a fun place. So thank you. I appreciate that. We'll get you verified. And also thank you for the follow. I was so focused I missed it, but I see that you followed, and I appreciate that as well. Glad you are here and enjoying the content. Faux show. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, I need to add a DM note here. Players need key 1 from section 1 of the dungeon to enter this room. What really is homebrew? Homebrew is basically anything that's created. I'm in the context of D&D. It's something that you kind of created on your own for use with the D&D rule system. Is basically what it is. So when I'm saying my homebrew world, right, I'm talking about the world that I create, like I'm working on right now. This dungeon, this is a homebrew dungeon, so it's a dungeon that I'm creating, but using D&D rule sets to be able to run the game. So it's like you're using pre-created rules, but creating your own setting. Homebrew can also, people will do like homebrew races where it's like, okay, I don't want to just use the elves and dwarves that are there, so I'm going to create my own race and stuff, but it's made to be used in D&D. So people will do homebrew races, homebrew classes, stuff like that. That's all homebrew. And so that's what I work on a lot for these writing streams is my homebrew world. Yeah. Let's see here. So for this thing, and now we need a reward here. And we'll say clenched in the hand of the corpse that lies in this room is a large key. Next to the body is an open chest that appears to have 2 more copies of the same key inside. And then I'm just gonna because I don't want to explicitly say it to them. They need to figure it out for themselves. But we're gonna say this is key 2 used to access some rooms in section 1 and to access section 3 of this dungeon. Boom, there we go. So that's what there is in this thing, and so now let's just decorate super quick here. I'll go ahead and put another. Okay, here's where we're gonna make the statue facing a different way, just to screw with my players, because all of the statues so far have been facing south, and so I just think it'll be really funny to panic them by making one statue that faces a different way, just to make them wonder if that part of it is significant. They might not even notice. Truthfully, they might not even notice. But that type of stuff is always fun to throw in there. As the DM, when you're making your own games and stuff, you have to make your own fun. So that's the way I do it. Just subtle ways to just slowly make my players go insane, bit by bit, just one little bit at a time. So let's do that, and then let's go ahead and go to our objects here. And what we can do is here, what I want to do, I want to go to, where is it? Corpse. There we go. We'll just throw down a corpse. Let's see here. Let's do. See, that's a good one, but I want to make it smaller because it's supposed to be a dwarf. So let's do 0.5. Let's half the size of it. There we go. Perfect. Boom. There we go. There's our dwarf corpse. There's our dwarven corpse. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's flawless. I guess I should also put a chest here. Let's go all here and search for chest. Just put a little chest because I did describe that there would be an open chest in there next to him. So let's put the open chest right there. There we go. And we'll just pretend there's keys in it. Boom. There we go. Bada bing, bada boom. Save it. Boom. Admire our handiwork. We are now halfway done with his dungeon. There's the first room, or first section, first set of rooms. There's the second set. Wonderfully monotonous and samey, exactly to feel like a slog through a dark, dank, horrible, dangerous, frightening dungeon. Perfect. Excellent. Job well done today. I am quite happy. I'm quite happy with the progress we made today. That is a lot of good writing done today. So, with that, so it is exactly 1:30, which means it is time for me to end my writing stream. What's going to happen next is I'm going to take about like a 15-20 minute break, like I do, just rest my voice a little bit, and then I will come back for a little bit of video game streaming. Right now, I'm working through playing Neverwinter Nights. So if that's something that is of interest to you, you can feel free to check back in, and like I say, about 15-20 minutes, and I should be on and playing. And if you're really just here for the D&D content, then there are a lot of other small streamers doing a lot of other really cool creative things like this, and I suggest you check them out, because I will not be doing any more writing today. 2 hours is about the max that I can creatively do before my brain starts turning to mush. So yeah, so that's what's coming up. As far as other streams for the rest of this week, tomorrow's Wednesday. Don't stream on Wednesdays. I will be out for my day job. I got to be out in the field doing some work for my day job. So I will not be on tomorrow. I will be back. I did iron out my schedule. I will be back on Thursday, same time, to do some streaming on Thursday, and possibly Friday. Now Friday is the question mark. Normally I definitely stream on Fridays, but this week that might be a little different. We're getting kind of close to the holidays and all that kind of stuff, so timing is going to start getting kind of weird and wild about when I can and can't stream. So it's all the Wild West now, figuring out my schedule. But definitely back Thursday, possibly back Friday as well. But yeah, and I will be back same time. That's Eastern time zone. 11:30 is when I start my writing streams. So that I can look forward to that. As I mentioned, I do have a Discord channel, a Discord server. Feel free to join that if that's of interest to you. I also do have a YouTube channel where I upload all my VODs, so if you are interested in seeing some of the other stuff I've worked on, some of the other games I've played and streamed, you can feel free to check those out. Kind of chaotic. It's just, like I say, it's just a big old, repository of all my VODs, but it's there. So if you're interested, you can check all that kind of stuff out. Other than that, that's all I got. So I'm going to take a bit of a break. Hopefully see you back here in like 15-20 minutes. If not, that is totally fine. I appreciate you either way. I appreciate all my viewers either way. I think it's really cool that people are interested in the stuff that I'm working on. I find it quite flattering, and I have a whole lot of fun doing this. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Take care of yourselves, and I will be back shortly. Until then, I don't know. Bye.